Welcome to another episode of Grind Culture Podcast. I am Ed.
I am Colton.
Or Coltonio, as I call him. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Coltonio is my Spanish brethren.
See?
That you speak some decent Spanish, I think. I think you're hiding some Spanish. Because you said you took Spanish class, but I think you remember a lot more than you lead on.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What helped was, so I took the 2 years in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I totally almost butchered Spanish 1.
Yeah.
And almost failed it. So then I took Spanish 2, and my mom was like, you need a tutor. So
Oh,
I
really?
had a tutor.
Oh.
And she was fluent. So she really helped me speak Spanish, or at least pass my test. I wouldn't say we really practice Spanish, but
Was your high school or school one that you needed to take a foreign language in order for you to graduate?
it had to take 2 years or something.
Yeah.
We had Spanish, French, sign language.
Really? You had all that? And because you had a little school. You went to a small school, right? Or no?
It was smaller, but it was pretty big.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you had we come from a small mountain community, but
Yeah.
across the whole mountain, how it kind of worked was you had multiple elementary schools, then you had one middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had one high school. So everybody kind of met up there. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
I took Spanish because it was easy for me, obviously. I'm fluent in Spanish. I think I mentioned that. My parents come from Peru, and I took Spanish for an easy A because that easy A helped me tremendously in high school.
Yeah.
We did have a bunch of different languages because my school was big.
Right.
In Carlsbad, we had French, German, sign language, Spanish, Chinese, or Mandarin, I think it was. And
Dang.
one other one I don't remember that they introduced.
Uh-huh.
Latin, maybe? Latin? Which,
Jeez.
I don't want to take that. I was speaking Latin. So I took Spanish, took it for 4 years because it was easy for me, and it was go to school or go to a Spanish class, half-ass pay attention,
Yep.
and just get the A and get out of there. So that's what I did.
Yeah, a lot of my friends on my soccer team, they were Hispanic, and they were in my Spanish class, and they were just hanging out, not even doing anything all the time.
It was the best.
A lot of them actually failed the class because they didn't care. They didn't even want to do the homework and stuff. But you could totally tell they knew everything.
Well, that's extremely counterproductive.
It is
Yeah.
it was kind of funny though.
But today's podcast, today's episode is a fun one. You had the idea of bringing back something along the lines of the Q&A episode. This one is a debunk or a demyth coffee myth buster episode. We looked, me and you quickly researched some of the myths or some of the things that coffee is known for, bad or good, and if some of those things are true or some of those things are false, whether scientifically or just by experience alone.
Yep.
There was 3 websites that I went on, and the first one was just a Uproxx social news outlet website where they kind of did their own research, quote unquote, nothing scientific. So there was a few things that I took from there, and then a few things I took from the National Coffee Association website.
Yeah.
They had their own article about coffee myths.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And they kind of gave their insight scientifically on whether those were true or not.
Okay.
And then I just found some other ones on some other sites, some miscellaneous ones.
Sweet.
But you and I both have a list, and I've browsed through your list a little bit, and you have some of the same things that I have in mind. So I'm just going to ask you what you have in yours, and I'm going to try to pull up mine and just kind of give back and forth of what we found out or what we know just through life experience.
Okay.
So what do
perfect.
you have what's the first thing on your coffee myth list?
Coffee is addicting.
What do you have as an answer to that?
I want to say both, but in reality, it's false.
And see, I got the same kind of information.
Yeah.
But in my own experiences, there is some kind of addictive quality to coffee, obviously. Not obviously, but for me, I guess you have to attribute it to what is addictive to you. Like, what is the definition of having an addictive quality?
Yep.
I think the NCAA said, or NCA said, they asked if caffeine is highly addictive, and they said no, it's not.
Yeah, that changes the whole thing.
Addictive, yeah, because what I read is that it does promote some kind of spark in your central nervous system and your brain. And if you consume it long enough and for a good period of time, consistently,
yes,
when you stop having it, you get the effects of withdrawals. Gets the effects of a headache, a very minor like style withdrawal, like of a more addicting like substance.
Right.
But you do get that feeling of going through a withdrawal, and that's just, it comes through as like a headache, which I do get if I stop. Like the one day I stopped drinking coffee, my head instantly hurts, and it can't go away for like 1 or 2 days, or if I just have caffeine right away.
Yeah, I have a headache right now, and this cup of coffee will get rid of that headache.
Yeah, and that to me is addicting, having an addictive quality in something.
Properties.
Yeah. So I would say yes. Yeah. I would say yes, it's addictive, but not in the sense of like it's going to ruin your life addictive.
Yeah, and that's why I say false.
Right.
Because I've heard like for something to be addictive is if you absolutely can't function without that substance.
Right.
So we talk about like cocaine or something along those lines, a high like drug.
Yeah.
Being addictive. If you do that for long enough, you're going to be an addict to that substance. Yeah. Right. So coffee, I say no, because you do have addictive properties in it, like just like the headache. But I would say your average person can function off of it, coffee, true. And you can kind of like, after a few days, you can kind of just be like, oh, I don't really need coffee. So that's why I say no. But
I guess it just all comes from circumstance, I think, because you saying that, even just like that little bit of detail, gives me a different perspective of like what addictive can mean to somebody. Like, I never gone through anything really addictive or had an addictive quality. Yeah. But some people, and that's why I think like even like the slightest thing of having like a coffee headache may be addictive, but somebody going through an addictive personality or something that they're using that is highly addictive and they can't shut it down, they probably have a different they're like, coffee, no, that's not an addiction, you idiot. Like, try a hardcore drug, like you said, cocaine. Like, that's an addictive thing.
Yeah. So, and I don't know about you, but I've met addicts before, and it's sad.
Me too.
We don't need to go that deep, but I've never met somebody who hasn't been drinking coffee and they don't have like problems,
Yeah, very true.
They're just moody maybe if they haven't had their coffee, but
yeah.
But like you said, it's a lot on how you define addictive or addicting.
Yeah. So yes and no. I think you kind of laid it out for me where no, it's not addicting. You get a slight headache. A lot of things give you headache. Allergies give you headache. That's just what it is. So yeah, coffee maybe no. Big no on addicting. Cool. My first one I have is Starbucks coffee is burnt. Now, I've read this even before I started drinking coffee. My father-in-law always said, my stepfather-in-law always said that Starbucks coffee is the worst coffee he's had, and obviously he's been drinking coffee a lot longer than I have, but he's not nearly to the extent of like coffee professionalism as I am right now. But still, he did mention like, no, Starbucks coffee is bad coffee. It's disgusting. Yeah. And obviously when I first started drinking coffee, Starbucks coffee was a lot of the coffee that I drank, being that Lindsay worked there. So I never really knew what good coffee tastes like, but now having it like today, there is a certain taste to Starbucks coffee where it could taste burnt.
It is burnt.
So it is, and that is
true.
That brings me to the good point. It's true, but they do that intentionally, because what I was reading is that Starbucks wants their coffee to taste consistent throughout
The world.
the world.
Yes.
So they think that the darker the roast of the coffee, the
Yep.
more consistent the taste.
And that is correct.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, we're talking about the coffee that they have in their machines, especially their espresso. It's going to be dark roast. It's going to be smoky. It's going to be heavy, like dark chocolate. Maybe you get like some chocolatey in there, but it's going to be smoky. It's going to be like the rich, dark flavor that they want, consistency. And it's not going to be like the greatest quality of coffee.
Right.
Is it better than maybe some like old, like Robusta coffee? Like maybe I would say almost like Starbucks is better than like Folgers and stuff. That's another thing to talk about, but
Yeah.
but that's the coffee we're talking about. And Starbucks does offer, you know, like some medium roast sometimes, like in their batch brewers and stuff like that. But we're talking about like your generic, like I assume that when people say when they say Starbucks coffee, they're talking about their espresso that's on bar.
Yeah. Assuming.
Cool.
Assuming too, because that's usually what I get, and that's always the burnt tasting to me.
It is.
I did see something like, isn't all coffee burnt? Like I saw like a response to that. Like, isn't all coffee burnt coffee in a sense? Yeah.
That can be our next like myth, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Again, like going back to addictive things. Yeah, coffee is burnt. There's different levels to the amount of roast. It's roasted. It's not
burnt. You can roast a lot of things,
Right.
like a marshmallow,
Right.
Right? And you can either catch it on fire. That's considered burnt, or you can slow roast it where that sucker doesn't catch on fire, and it's nicely roasted. It's caramelized. It's kind of like the same, or like an onion. You can cook onions and you can caramelize them and make them delicious, or you can just burn the heck out of them and they taste nasty and smoky.
Yeah.
Same things with coffee. We're
Right.
roasting coffee. You know, it doesn't get burnt until you take it to a certain level, and it really starts
Yeah.
somewhat burning.
Yeah. So yeah, coffee does that. They do intentionally make it a darker roast where it does have the taste of burnt, but also it's the quality of coffee that they're using across each Starbucks, which
Right.
is not good quality. We discussed that already.
Right.
But yeah, the Starbucks coffee is burnt to an extent, but they just have poor quality coffee. That's why it has that burnt taste.
Yeah, and I think that is a good next. I think our next myth we can talk about. All dark roasts have more caffeine. I think that would be a good next one to go into.
That
you
is
hear
like
that a lot.
Yeah, that is the most, I think, like self interpretation of different roasts. When you know that there's different roast levels to coffee, especially if you don't know anything about coffee, you probably would think automatically that burnt coffee or darker roast coffee has more caffeine in it.
Yes.
What would you say to that?
True and false.
Okay.
I think a lot of the answers are going to be true and false because there's different scenarios where you're using different coffee. So we all know, or a lot of people that have been on with us for all of our 17 episodes,
17.
You should have learned already that there's two types of coffee. There's a Robusta coffee and Arabica coffee. That Robusta coffee is always going to have more caffeine in the bean itself, so you really got to start from there, right? So if you're roasting that type of coffee, you're going to have more caffeine. If you're roasting Arabica, then, you know, it's going to have less, obviously. It doesn't really matter which level you take it out. Yes, if you go darker, it's actually opposite. So if you go darker, you're actually going to cook out a little bit of that caffeine. So it just matters what coffee you're roasting, how dark you take it, so you have those two things. A lot of people, I think, just go by taste. So like, oh, this coffee's stronger, it must have more caffeine. But that's not true. You can have an under-extracted dark roast, like take two of the same coffees, right? And one is dark roast, one is medium roast. Same coffee. If you do a really nice pour over and get a really good extraction with the medium roast and make a cup of coffee, and then let's say you take the dark roast and you do a shot of espresso, but you under extract it, the caffeine content in the medium roast is actually going to get more because you extracted more out of that bean rather than the under extracted shot of espresso that you took. So it really just matters.
Yeah.
But really it matters what beans you're using.
Yeah.
That's like what it breaks down to.
That's the most important thing is like the type of bean that you're using.
Right.
opposed to the actual roast level. I also heard, while we're on the subject, and I don't know if you said this before, but the way we brew it is also has a big factor of the. Well, I guess you kind of mentioned that.
Huge factor. That's,
Like,
I mean,
the espresso
really,
to the drip coffee is way you brew it is. Even like whether you're using the same bean, you could get more caffeine out of one method opposed to another, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, darker roasts have more caffeine. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Just know your coffee.
Right. Here's one I thought of initially when we were talking about this, and I kind of want to dig deep in this one. Coffee stunts your growth. Have you heard of that?
Down too.
Okay, so what I was reading is no, it does not. There's actually no study that proves that it stunts your growth.
Right.
And there's been like not debate but discussion on like where that came from initially. And I was reading that there is Postmark Brothers, which is like a cereal brand. I think they're still around. In like the turn of the century, whenever that is, they had this product called Postum. I don't know what Postum is exactly, but it was supposed to be a substitute for coffee. And one of their advertisements was that don't drink coffee because coffee stunts your growth. Drink Postum. So allegedly that's where that myth started, is through like a marketing scheme for having the Post guys marketing their Postum.
And it just floated around.
Yeah, and it just stuck.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
I was wondering where it came from. I was like, no way. No, there's no studies on it that,
No. So it doesn't stunt your growth at all. But that did also lead me to another myth. I don't know if you have this one. Coffee is harmful for children. Do you have that?
I've never heard of that one.
Okay, so there are certain cultures that don't believe at all that coffee should not be drank by children. Americans, don't think that coffee should be drank at a young age. However, in my culture growing up, my cousins, especially when I visited in Peru, they always drank coffee with their breakfast, and it wasn't a large amount, but they always had coffee and milk with their bread and their butter and so on and so forth.
Right.
And I always thought that was strange and interesting at the same time, because I was so used to like not drinking coffee when I was like growing up here.
Right.
But when I asked my mom about it when I was little, she's like, "Oh yeah, your cousins drink coffee. You could drink coffee, just don't drink it in large amounts." So looking into it, it's a big cultural thing.
Yeah.
But there's no study that says drinking a large amount of coffee is harmful to a kid, and the difference of how harmful it would be to an adult.
Right.
And that is, it could alleviate some of the focus that a kid has when they're growing up and they're developing their brain, like trying to study for school or anything, or they get headaches if they get withdrawals. Nothing like dissimilar to an adult. That's why it's not good to. I guess Americans just don't want kids to be drinking coffee in general, but there is a certain amount of coffee that doesn't harm the kid. I think 200 milliliters or less or something like that. That wouldn't affect the kid entirely. So I guess it's like a cultural thing is what I saw.
Yeah, and I was just laughing there because I was just thinking of like my girls like drinking coffee. Like if they would drink this coffee, oh my gosh, they're already crazy and hyper enough. Like if they drink coffee, they would just be wild.
Yeah.
And then there would be the crash, obviously.
Yeah, the crash too.
So yeah, that makes sense. And I guess me personally, like for thinking about my going further and like my kids drinking coffee, I give them like sips of my coffee and stuff. Like don't even think about it because I know it's not harmful for them. Yeah. If anything, they might get like a little like just rush from the caffeine, and I'm not giving them a whole cup or anything. Yeah, I think that's just totally false. I think. One, kids just don't need caffeine, so a lot of parents just are like, "Hey, like no," because kids are already hyper enough, or at least they should be, So it's like they don't need it, and it's not worth giving them a headache like it's like an adult thing. Yeah, it's like, and even adults like we don't really need it, but it's a nice thing to have. It's enjoyable. It's a nice beverage, adult. Beverage, so. Okay. Back at
it. So yeah, I also give like my kid Eloise, my daughter, a little bit of coffee as well. Where I do see harm in it though, which I have seen in the past. I think I want to recollect this memory because it seems so vivid in my head.
Yeah.
Going back to Starbucks. I don't mean to crap on Starbucks so much because
You can. It's okay.
yeah, they did allow Lindsay to get a free education, and I do appreciate that, and she does too. And there's a lot of good qualities about Starbucks as far as employees go, I think. But they do kind of have a cater to children in the manner that they advertise some of their stuff,
Yeah.
which I think is more harmful than the coffee itself.
Yep.
Like growing up, I heard frappuccinos or like cold foam, vanilla, nitro, cold brew,
Yep.
blah blah blah, and that stuff, like pumpkin spice or like strawberry.
Yeah. It had like that
cotton
purple
candy.
unicorn one time. It had like 80 grams of sugar.
They do cater, whether they admit it or not, to children that drink those heavy sugarized coffee drinks,
Yep.
which I think is a lot more harmful than like the coffee that you and I drink on a daily basis.
100%.
That's where I think the harm comes from. Coffee
Yeah.
is harmful to kids, and it's the way companies advertise their coffee.
It's not the coffee. It's what's in the coffee.
Yeah.
It's the additives.
So I did want to mention that because I don't think I think Starbucks does a disservice when it comes to that. Kids shouldn't be drinking that stuff. They already have a hard time going through the day without asking for like cupcake or a cookie or
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I think adding to that is not good
Right.
at all.
Yep. And they obviously see the market there. You know, kids want to, like high schoolers especially, want to go hang out. You know, so they got to cater to them and what they want. You know, you're not going to have it's going to be rare if you find a kid that wants just a black cup of coffee.
Right.
You know, so it's like, oh, let's sweeten this thing up, make it a dessert. So just take it as it is. Coffee will never harm you. It won't. Yes, it might give you a headache, but you can drink a ton of black coffee and you'll be fine. It actually, as we talked about before, has a lot of health benefits. So the positives outweigh the negatives by far. But the things that people add to coffee, that can kill you.
Yeah.
Simple as that if you drink enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
sugar in general, it'll just take you out
Yeah,
if you
so-
eat too much of it.
if your kids ask for that, please don't give it to them.
Yeah, if they want a sweet, coffee, give them a decaf, like honey cinnamon latte. I mean,
Yeah. Just so much better for
something
you. Just as
simple.
good, yeah. What do you got next?
Let's see. So let's go along the lines of we just talked about. So health benefits. So let's go further down that. Coffee is bad for your teeth.
Oh, yeah. It has to be.
True or false?
It has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whether,
sure.
I mean, in the sense of like teeth staining or in the sense of like, that's what I attribute it,
Bad in general.
coffee to. So,
So I've heard two. So there's two myths here. So coffee stains your teeth, which we know is true
yeah.
because it happens to me. It
happens to me too.
If I drink too much, I don't brush my teeth.
Right.
Second, coffee is bad for your teeth. So it's bad for the enamel. It actually can break down your teeth. And I've heard if you brush your teeth too soon after having coffee, it's actually really bad for your teeth.
What, because it spreads it around or something?
So coffee is acidic, right? And we all know that acidic things break down enamel in your teeth. So when you have a hot cup of coffee and your teeth are breaking down and then you go and you rush and you brush your teeth, it's actually bad for them because you're going from hot breakdown to cold washing and it's damages your enamel even more. So yes, it stains your teeth. Yes, it kind of breaks down the enamel in your teeth already. So it is bad for your teeth. So maybe drink coffee with a straw.
That was going to be my next question. Is that really truly better for you drinking coffee or anything through a straw?
Oh, yeah.
To help your teeth health?
Yeah, if you want your teeth to be healthy, just surpass going through your teeth.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I mean, when I drink from a straw, I still put it on my teeth. It's not like it goes straight down. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, in a sense, yes, it does help because especially like your front teeth, maybe.
Yeah. I always thought that. Because I've heard that with not only coffee but like sodas, which I don't drink. But like anything, like if you drink it with a straw, it surpasses a lot of the unhealthy benefits of like drinking stuff like that.
Yeah, and that cracks me up. Soda, like.
Yeah, soda. I don't even want to talk about
Let's
that.
not talk about it.
So going back to that topic, is there any way to like in your opinion, is there a proper, or something that you know, is there a way to properly combat the negative effects of coffee after you consume it for your teeth? Like, is it good to drink water? Or is it good to brush your teeth later in the day? Obviously, like, you don't want to do it right away.
Yeah, I would just wait.
Yeah.
Wait until maybe
The saliva maybe breaks it down or something. I don't know what saliva does really, but.
Yeah, drink coffee, eat breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
or eat something.
Mm-hmm.
Rinse your mouth out with water 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and then go ahead and brush your teeth.
Yeah. It's probably a good habit to do anyway. Ways is water, which is another thing that I have here.
Mhm.
And this is from the NCA.
Okay.
Coffee can dehydrate you. Did we talk about that already? No.
Nope.
I heard no. They say no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
They say.
Because I say true.
They say, this is what they say. Caffeine does have dehydrating effects in it naturally, but depending on the amount of water you use to consume the coffee that you're brewing,
Right.
that's going to really give you the yes or no to whether or not it's dehydrating you. So obviously watered down coffee, there's a lot of water in it. Kind of like even like the end of like our Americanos.
Oh,
Our
right,
Americanos
right.
are made with water. It's like half water, or like 2 to 3 parts water, whatever.
Okay, so I get what they're saying.
So you are still getting H2O in your system with the majority of the time that you're drinking coffee.
Right.
But if, like you said, if you're drinking straight like
Espresso shots?
or concentration or whatever,
Right.
you're not getting
You're not
as
getting the
much
water with it.
H2O in the system when you drink coffee. So
Okay, so we match. So I was gonna say true, because I usually say yes, coffee dehydrates you, because I've heard that you should drink 1 part water to 1 part coffee if you want to stay hydrated. So that makes sense. The water breakdown. I would say if you're drinking shots of espresso, then no, you could probably get dehydrated off of that.
Yeah.
But like yes, like you're saying, through these cups of coffee, no.
yeah, so they say no, but I think to an extent, yes, it can be, just depending on the coffee that you drink.
Okay, I've heard about like same thing with tea too, like green tea, caffeinated
really?
tea. Same thing.
Okay.
I think caffeine in general might just dehydrate you a little
Yeah.
bit. But don't know. That was just me
Yeah.
thinking out loud.
Another one that I have is, can coffee sober you up? Did you look at this one at all?
Yes.
And what did you find out?
I found out that it was true. In a sense of, so we know that coffee or caffeine, it's, yeah, how can I put it? It is good for like waking your body up.
Yeah.
It's good for, what am I looking for?
They say it's a stimulant.
Yeah, it's a stimulant. It wakes your body up. It helps you like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not perform, not progress. A lot of athletes take it.
Yeah. I don't know.
But anyways, yeah, it wakes your body up.
Adrenaline?
Kind of.
I heard.
What did you find out? Sorry, I butchered that. So
I heard that it doesn't, in the manner of it's psychologically it might sober you up, but like in the scientific terms, it does not.
Okay.
So what they mean by that is, so alcohol, assuming that you're trying to get sober from alcohol is a depressant, coffee is a stimulant.
Okay.
If those two things are consumed with one another, they do have counteracting effects on your body. So in the sense that if you're feeling groggy and tired and still have some alcohol in your system and you're feeling that depressant or you're feeling that fatigue, drinking coffee will perk you up. So in the mental state of being hungover or being drunk, if you drink coffee, it will perk you up and you will have some kind of more attentiveness or awareness. However, the scientific qualities of being sober, it does not magically make you sober. It doesn't reduce the alcohol content from your bloodstream, or it doesn't help your liver at all.
Right.
In fact, they said it's a lot more dangerous if you're drinking coffee with alcohol, because it does counteract some of that fatigue. So you do feel like less sober. You feel more aware. So it kind of plays a trick on your head to think that you can drink more.
Interesting. Yeah, and speaking of like dehydration, if you're drinking the coffee with that, you're getting more dehydrated.
That is a fact that would dehydrate you. So, yeah.
So that would be a factor. I guess what I was trying to say was that so caffeine is a performance enhancement drug.
Oh, yeah.
That's the words I was looking for.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like if you're feeling like crap in the morning, if you have a gnarly headache, then yes, I just think it could help you like get up and get some energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
exactly, it does that. But in the terms of like reducing your blood alcohol level, no. And in fact, it's not good for you.
Don't do it.
Because then you'll feel like, oh yeah, I could drink again. I could drink more. So yeah, just don't do it. Espresso martinis, though they seem enticing and they're pretty good, don't do them. Don't do them.
Yeah, don't do it.
What else you got?
Let's see. So next on my list, I got decaf coffee has no caffeine in it.
I haven't seen this one.
What do you think?
True or false? Well, from what I know, working here, I know it doesn't completely doesn't have like there's not an entire, how do I want to say this? It does have caffeine, very minimal amount of caffeine.
Right. And it does. So decaf coffee, you can get a lot out through the decaffeinated process, but you can't get it all out. Right. So I think you can get up to 90% of the caffeine out of the bean, but there's always going to be a little bit left in that decaf coffee. So for people that think that you're not going to get a little bump out of decaf, no, you're still going to get a little bit of caffeine in there, but it's not going to be harmful.
Right.
You're not going to really, like if you got a decaf espresso shot compared to a normal shot of undecaffeinated coffee, then you'll notice like you'll probably get hyper off of one and not hyper off the other.
Yeah.
And decaf is, I mean, we'll talk about this in another episode, but decaf, it's got like a comeback, a lot of people are realizing that you can still get really good coffee out of decaf. You won't get as much because obviously through that process you are taking a lot of the soluble, like really good things out of the bean as you're doing it, so you're not going to get as tasty as a cup. But a lot of producers are learning how to decaffeinate coffee but keep a lot of that flavor in, especially if it's like a good quality coffee. You'll still get a lot of good properties out when you brew it. So decaf is great. It's a great option, because you still get like the health properties out of it, like we've talked about before in that past episode. And then it's a good like evening drink. You still can enjoy it. So
yeah, I actually heard that looking into like the different ways that we do decaf, or like that coffee is decaffeinated in a way, the way that we do it is probably the best tasting and the best process in which coffee is decaffeinated, which is the Swiss water process.
Yes.
No, I don't really understand it quite well as I'd like to. I just know that it's like, this is what I think it is. It's just washed a lot more than the standard coffee is. And
there's some producers that use chemicals to decaf coffee. That's definitely a stay away from. The Swiss water process does not use chemicals. That's like the biggest thing. So you don't have to worry about having anything harmful.
That's probably why it tastes better then. You think?
Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, I got to try some of our decaf, because I have heard it's pretty good.
It is good.
Yeah.
I make decaf coffee for my wife all the time.
Oh, you do?
And I like it a lot. It's not as like great as our light roasts and stuff, but it's a good option.
Yeah, I'll have to try it. Another one that I have is, does coffee make you lose weight? Now, there is some truth to this, but a lot of It's not a food substitute. It's not a nutrient substitute where like a big thing right now is like what's that thing that all these celebrities are doing right now? It's not, is it Ozempic? No. Is it Ozempic? Something. Celebrities are like getting skinny in a way where like they're taking some kind of like supplement where like they lose their hunger, or like it adds or it substitutes like their meal or their food intake.
So they just don't eat food.
Yeah, I think it's Ozempic. But people thought that coffee does the same kind of thing for you naturally, but that's not true. However, I do think there is truth to where like coffee does give you some kind of what's that word where it like it moves your bowels. What is that? It makes you go number 2.
It makes you crap.
Yeah. So
it's got fiber in it, so it really helps with your digestive system. It has 3 grams per cup.
Yeah. So when you drink coffee, there is that natural sense of like, oh, I got to use the restroom because I'm not hungry at all. Like, so coffee does do that, but it's not intended for a meal substitute. Coffee doesn't do that.
Right.
But it does give you that feeling. It can help you you can lose weight just drinking coffee, obviously.
But it's the things that are in between your cups of coffee that are going to be the biggest. Important. So I guess, coffee could help you lose weight because it is like a performance enhancement drug, and you can, have a cup of coffee and work out better, or you can, know that your cup of coffee has fiber in it, and if you drink up to 3 cups a day, that's 9 grams of fiber, which is like half your daily intake, which is great, and that'll be really good for your digestive system. So you'll lose weight that way, and you'll feel a lot better. So obviously it helps, but the coffee itself, it's not a weight loss supplement.
It doesn't help you lose weight, but so no, coffee is not a weight loss supplement, like you said.
Got it.
That's the next one I had.
Got it. I am done with that list. Let's go on to coffee can protect you from certain diseases.
I don't know this one.
You should.
Heart disease. Cardiovascular disease.
There you go.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Yep, like we've talked about before, it is, they have done tests, and it can help prevent heart disease and all those good things. So
the myth is actually that it could cause heart disease and cardiovascular disease, right?
Wrong. That is the stuff that is added to coffee. Yeah.
People think that, but you're right. Just like what we're talking about, the Starbucks drinks, the Frappuccinos, and all that crappy stuff, that will cause you.
Nope, but the coffee itself will never give you any diseases. It won't not be the coffee itself.
Yeah, in fact, drink coffee.
Yes.
To help that.
And if you don't like caffeine, then get decaf.
And then the last one that I have that I see you have too, pregnant women shouldn't drink coffee. My wife drank a cup of coffee every day while pregnant, a certain amount. She was very careful to the amount of caffeine that she took.
Right.
And there was we haven't seen any negative effect of our daughter's development.
No, your kid's great.
She's awesome. Looking into it, I didn't see any. There is a kind of the same thing when it comes to like kids. Caffeine can get through the placenta into the baby, or what do you want to call that? Embryo? Is it embryo?
It's been a while since we've had them.
Anyways, it could get into the baby system through the placenta, but there is
through the feeding tube, it can get into the baby's system.
Yeah,
and therefore causing heart rate to go up.
Yeah. So there is a certain amount that shouldn't be drinking, but there is a safe amount also that you can drink.
Yeah, and that's what I found out. The biggest thing that they're worried about, and they just say not to do it because it can increase like the heart rate for you and the baby, especially older. But I think that was more of like an old school way of thinking, and now they're like, oh yeah, you can totally have coffee, just have this amount a day and you'll be totally fine. The baby's fine, it's not harmful.
Yeah.
And again, on top of that, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's the things that you put into the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sugar is going to be way worse for you and the baby than the coffee itself.
Yeah. Fetus. I was thinking about fetus.
The fetus.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was, I don't know. Did I think of anything when I was kind of researching myself? I don't think so. We touched upon the roast, and we touched upon pretty much everything else that I was kind of like, I like went into like thinking when I was drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Or at least before I was drinking coffee, we kind of touched on everything. It's like you get some of the normal stuff, like like the old wives' tale kind of things, like when it comes to coffee. But a lot of that is just kind of like, I don't know, myths, I guess.
It's
like they're just like, they're not
popular
true.
opinions.
Yeah. They just want people to make, like, that's all they hear when they're kids. So like they bring it into their adulthood or like their livelihood, and they think it's true, but a lot of it's not.
Yep. A lot of it is the stuff you're adding to it. That's where the myths come from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any added myths or anything that we miss, anything that you think you know about coffee and you're not really sure, then comment below. Mm-hmm. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below. If you're on Apple Podcasts, and go over to our YouTube or our Instagram and let us know any myths that you might know. And then maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, like later on down the road, of just what you guys post, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and then send us messages or anything else you want to learn in future episodes about coffee. The coffee world's huge, and sometimes we kind of discuss, you and I, like, what are we going to talk about next?
Yeah.
There's so many things that I think about throughout the week that I'm like, oh yeah, we could talk about that, we could talk about that. But I want to know from you guys what you're most interested in and what you want to hear from us, or what we can research for you, because we love learning about coffee. It's in our field. So let us know.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.